and welcome to the Executive Forum, Building a Safer Workplace Through Innovation and Leadership. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode, and if you would like to ask a question, please type your question in the chat box located in the lower left-hand corner and press send. Questions will be answered by today's presenters via email after the presentation. If you experience any technical issues during the conference, please contact the moderator by going to the chat box located in the lower left-hand corner, choosing Tech Support from the drop-down list, and then type your question. I will now turn things over to Joy Inouye.
Thanks, Jamie. Welcome everyone this morning. Thank you for joining us for this Campbell Institute webinar, Building a Safer Workplace Through Innovation and Leadership. If you have joined us for our previous webinars in the past, you'll realize that this is a little bit different from some of those webinars. Today we'll actually be broadcasting the video from the Campbell Institute Executive Forum. It was originally recorded last September in Atlanta, Georgia. During this presentation, you will hear how three top leaders in education and industry are using new ideas and innovation to address serious injuries and fatalities, help organizations avoid complacency, and keep organizations focused on continuous improvement. The question and answer session from this original presentation will also be included in this video. So hope you guys can stick around for that. All right, we hope you enjoy the presentation. Enjoy.
Now, please welcome your moderator for your Executive Forum, Bill Williams.
Good morning. Welcome to the 2015 Executive Forum presented by the Campbell Institute. The Campbell Institute at the National Safety Council is a center of environmental health and safety excellence. The Institute is built upon the belief that protecting people and preserving the planet are integral to business operations, and it seeks to help organizations of all sizes and in all sectors achieve and to sustain EHS excellence. My name is Bill Williams, and I'm a member of the Campbell Institute's Advisory Committee. I'm the Executive Vice President and Consulting Service Leader for ORC HSE Strategies, a Washington, D.C.-based consulting and networking group that's been in existence since 1972. We are strong supporters of the National Safety Council and the Campbell Institute. I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, AECOM, for their generous sponsorship of the 8th Annual Executive Forum. AECOM is a member of the Campbell Institute and is featured in the Congress issue of Safety and Health magazine. The article is on influencing safety in a maturing culture. Thank you, AECOM. The emphasis of this year's forum is about continuing the journey to safety excellence through a focus on new approaches and innovation. We have an excellent group of speakers today to give their views on safety through innovation. This is a leadership and ideas focused session. Our speakers will address their own approaches in the corporations, technical advances that have the potential to positively influence safety in the workplace, and for many of you, a different perspective on the prevention of mishaps, fatalities, and serious injuries. We hope that as this session ends, you will consider these ideas and perspectives in your own work. You have access to our speakers' full biographies in your program materials, so I'll only briefly introduce each of the panelists. Each speaker will have approximately 20 minutes for an introductory presentation, and after the third speaker, we should have about 25 minutes for questions and answers. We'd like to have this session interactive. There'll be 2 microphones on stands. I see one there and over here, and so be thinking about your questions during the presentations, and at the conclusion of Todd Conklin's presentation, we'll open it up to questions and answers for the panelists. Now I'll briefly introduce our speakers. Sam Smolik is the Senior Vice President of Manufacturing and Refining Operations for LyondellBasell and is responsible for manufacturing operations in North and South America. Sam previously served as Global VP of Health, Safety, Environment, and Operational Excellence and has held similar positions with Shell and the Dow Chemical Company. He holds a number of leadership positions with organizations including the University of Texas at Austin Antwerp International School Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, and the World Environmental Center. He holds a BS degree in chemical engineering from the University of Texas at Austin and is based in Houston, Texas. Aaron Walsh is Director of Immersive Education Initiative, a nonprofit collaborative to define and develop standards for virtual reality and game-based learning and training systems. A best-selling author and writer featured in technology and mainstream publications, Aaron Walsh created the term immersive education and established it as a subject area in the 1990s. In 2007, he was named one of the 40 most innovative people in the IT industry by Computer World and currently holds U.S. patents for modern graphical user interface. Aaron teaches computer graphics and immersive education at Boston College and is a frequent advisor to high technology companies. Todd Conklin spent 25 years at Los Alamos National Laboratory as Senior Advisor for Organizational and Safety Culture. He's worked in human performance for 15 years and holds a PhD in organizational behavior from the University of New Mexico. A frequent speaker to executives and groups, Todd clarifies the relationships between workers and organizational systems. He defines safety as the ability for workers to be able to do work in a varying and unpredictable world. Todd lives in Santa Fe and thinks that human performance is the most meaningful work he's ever had the opportunity to live and teach. This is our speaker lineup, and please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Sam Smolik.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Bill. You be sure and pull me off the stage here if I'm going too long. It's really a pleasure to be here with everybody in Atlanta. We have lawyers in our company in LyondellBasell, and basically they said anything I say wouldn't hold up in court anyway, so I think that speaks to the credibility of what you're about to hear. A quick word about LyondellBasell. I often compare it to the commercial with a name like Smucker's, you have to be good. And our company is actually one of the largest petrochemical companies in the world. We have manufacturing facilities in many different continents and JV operations. We have about $40 to $50 billion of sales annually, depending on the price of oil. Products, we start with refining. We refine crude oil, so we make gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, go on through to chemicals, making olefins, plastics, and then we have proprietary technology that we sell and license to other companies. How many chemical engineers are out there? You heard of Ziegler-Natta catalyst? Okay, those Ziegler and Natta are predecessors to our company, so we still have the same labs where they invented the catalyst years ago. So LyondellBasell became a company in 2008. It's just before the financial crisis occurred. They were in existence for about a year and then just couldn't hang on and went bankrupt in early 2009. So we got a new CEO who came on board, Jim Gallagly, and you'll hear a lot about leadership and the importance of us setting the stage for safety. Jim contacted me about a month or so after he was on the job and tried to get me to come to the company. I was at Shell at the time. And I said, Jim, why would I want to come to a bankrupt company? I only know one way, and that's to do it right. And if we can't do it right, I don't want any part of it. And so we talked. Jim said, I feel exactly the same way. He said, we're going to be the safest company in the world, and we're going to be the best in our industry across the board. And I thought, hey, that sounds like a pretty ambitious goal for a company that's in bankruptcy and flat on its face. But that was 2009. So we put together our strategy. He was working on getting out of bankruptcy, and he wanted me to lead operational excellence for our company. And so that was one of our 6 pillars of our strategy that we still have today. The number one is operational excellence, and that's the safe, reliable operation of all of our facilities. And then you can see the other elements of our strategy. Well, let's fast forward to 2015. We started in 2009 when the company was in bankruptcy, had a injury illness rate of 0.45. That's okay. That's mediocre in the chemical business. The average of the American Chemistry Council today is about 0.6. So we drove that down. Currently, we're 0.19. We're right in the top 3 or 4 of the companies in our industry, large companies in this space. But we're definitely not satisfied with that. We have a 0 expectation, and I'll talk some more about that in a minute. But it's been good progress. You can see for about 3 years, we were stuck at the 0.23. Now, when we benchmark, that's not a bad place to be stuck. But we've worked really hard to get past that, and we're continuing to see the improvement. In fact, most of our focus now is on high potential incidents and near misses and being more proactive. Environmental incidents are down 70% from 2009, and process safety incidents, the ones that get all the attention, are down 80%. So we're not at 0 yet, but we feel like we're on our way, and we haven't seen, we're not plateaued by any means. Along with that, operational excellence starts with safety. It's the right thing for people, but it's also good business sense. So we're one of the most reliable suppliers to our customers, and Wall Street has rewarded us. We came out of bankruptcy in 2010 at $17 a share, and we hit $115 a share last year before the price of oil dropped, so we've dropped back with oil. So it all goes hand in hand. So how do we do it? And what's our strategy and focus? Now, I'm celebrating my 40th year in the business, mostly manufacturing, although I detoured for 15 years heading global HSE for Dow and Shell, and then coming to LyondellBasell. But I believe in simplicity. And when you think about our management system for the company, we break it down into 3 simple categories. That's assets, processes, and people. And it starts with my conversation with Jim. You have to maintain your assets. You have to design them and maintain them in good condition. It's like a car, right? If you had a car, but you run it on bad tires, you're going to have problems. And the same thing in a plant. And how many companies shortchange maintenance, reliability, and just don't give it what it really needs? So we put our first priority for our capital spending and our maintenance into the upgrade of our assets. And we've put millions of dollars back into our assets over the last 5 years. Processes, I talked about simplicity. We want simple processes. We went in and rewrote every standard, every guidance document in our company from an operational excellence point of view, and typically went from a 50 or 60 page document to where the requirements would all be on 1 or 2 pages. So you see goal 0 in the middle. When we talk about goal 0, and you can go to any person in our company around the world and they can tell you about goal 0. They preached to me, and I brought it on day 1 and said, this is what we're going to do. And for a couple of years, people argued with me, it's not possible. And now they preach to me about goal 0. But so our processes, if you think about procedures or standards, we want it simple, but we want it followed 100%. No exceptions. And then the third, and most important, of course, are people. And our people, we've got to hire the best people. And by the way, if you're looking for a job, send me a note, sam.smolik@lyb.com. And I'm taking applications all the time. But we want the best people. We have to motivate them. We have to onboard them, make sure they've got the skills and competencies, and then get them excited about understanding the Goal 0 concept. Now, let's build on people a little bit more. I believe that most companies have a strategy. Everybody has standards. They have processes. Everybody has to follow OSHA rules, etc. But the difference is in execution. It's how you execute. Same thing as sports. You know, you can have different football teams, but which team wins? It's the one that executes to the best and doesn't make mistakes and concentrates 100%. So we talk about goal zero. After about 2 or 3 years, we realize that most people get it, but there's a few people out there that don't get it. And normally we're preaching to the choir. Like in this room, I feel like everybody probably gets it. This is not the crowd that we need to change behaviors on. And so we started talking about goal zero 100%, which means 100% of the people, 100% of the time. And so if you're in a room, you can try this. If you're giving a safety talk or whatever, look for that person in the corner that's kind of looking at their cell phone or not really paying attention. That's the one that we're trying to get on board. We also personalize everything in our company. We want it to be a great place to work. People care for each other, and that's a big component of our system. Our contractors, when they come in to do maintenance turnarounds or capital projects, they tell us over and over and over again they've never been treated with such respect on any job. And we tell them from before they ever come for these big turnarounds, we have goal zero workshops where we get the commitment, the understanding of what we're going to achieve. And so, this is a never-ending game. We're dealing with people. We're dealing with different mentalities. Some people may be sick. They may be thinking about things, getting distracted. So you never, ever can relax in this area. But building a winning team goes a long way. Okay, getting more into detail, so I gave you like a high-level view. We've got our management system structured into many different work streams. So the basic Plan, Do, Check, Act, we really follow this. The plan essentially it's our know-how. It's our standards, our processes, our procedures. It's how we do things. So when somebody comes in, the training is based on the plan, if that makes sense. Then you roll into the execute phase, and this is where all the work takes place, right? Running the plants, doing all the various management techniques, the proactive work, the maintenance. This is what everybody does. Then you get into a check phase where we measure the results. So we have a lot of metrics, but then we have a few key performance indicators. And a lot of people get that confused. They call everything a KPI. So we take the few that we really want to make a difference in and drive to zero and call that a KPI. But you can see there's a whole lot of checks that take place. Incident investigations, audits, self-assessments, on and on and on. Now, I contend that most companies, when they check, then they go back and take action with the facility or the individual or whatever where they might have seen a defect, so that there's a little loop that goes from check back to do. All right, so what I preach, and we're getting better at it, we're not perfect yet, you got to carry it to the act part on a global basis, because if there's a learning at any facility, we want immediately everybody around the company to know about it. So for example, if there's an incident, if somebody cuts their finger in China, everyone in our company will know about it the next day. We'll send an alert out because we want to get that shock effect that says one of our people cut their finger, or a more serious incident. And in fact, high potential incidents where nobody gets hurt, but we feel like they could have seriously gotten hurt, that will get sent out the next day to everybody in the company. So we work hard to raise that awareness on a global basis. But then maybe the most important part is updating the system, going back to the plan. So every time as we go, if there's an industry incident, or if we learn something at a conference like this, or we learn something internally, the important thing is to go back and say what our standards and processes have kept us out of trouble, and change that. And so that's where I know our company has had, wasn't there for sure, and I would contend that probably most companies are that way. And so We drill down on every element. This is just an example of a few, but I think that's what gets our system robust, gets everybody understanding we're serious about Goal Zero and doing it the right way, and the results are showing. So finally, let me close. It's not about numbers. Everybody here knows this. This is the choir, right? This is about people. It's about families, and we show pictures like this. We say, what would happen if she was working at one of our plants and didn't go home that evening? What impact would that have on her children, her husband? We just can't have that. And this morning I heard in the opening remarks that one company had gotten down to just 5 lost time accidents. Well, we would never say that. That's 5 too many. So it has to be constantly 0. That's the only expectation. And I'll leave you with one last little story. When I was at Shell, we had 55,000 retail stations around the world. And in August of 2006 in Costa Rica, we had a station attendant was changing a filter on one of the gas pumps. All the gas pumps have filters. And this guy, he wasn't well trained. He got in a hurry. He wasn't paying attention. And gasoline started spilling out onto the pavement. And he didn't know where the emergency shut-off switch was. It just was not prepared. And it caught fire, and it burned, caught up underneath a car where there were 2 children in there, Andrea and Nicole, 6 and 11 years old. And they burned up in that incident. And the mother was inside. Can you imagine what she was going through? Screaming. That's the kind of thing that it seemed like a very small task, right? Changing a filter on a pump gets done millions of times per year. And yet, every detail has to be done the right way. And that's what we preach in our company, that if you're going to do it right, and do it right all the time. So, Bill, that's a quick remarks here. Hope I didn't go too long. Next speaker is Aaron Walsh. So, Aaron, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi. Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. And I'll just ask the control facility to go ahead and start playing the videos. My name is Aaron Walsh. I'm the director of the Immersive Education Initiative, which is a global consortium with about 7,000 members. I'm also a faculty at Boston College where I teach immersive education. The term immersion really refers to a stack of technologies that immerse the learner or the trainee into an actual experience that they believe is happening, as opposed to reading a pamphlet, reading a textbook, watching a video, or hearing about a lecture. The organization, the Immersive Education Initiative, was founded in 2005, actually after about a decade of work at Boston College. It's a nonprofit consortium, and it consists of primarily academics and an increasing number of businesses that work together to form the standards and the best practices around these technologies. It's an international organization, and we have conferences around the world, and we also have conferences here in the United States to share this information and to teach and train people how to use these technologies in and out of the classroom. We range from the Ivies down to the homeschoolers who do it at home by themselves, and companies of all sizes. The stack of technologies that comprise immersive education is plentiful. I'll show you virtual reality today, but it consists of virtual reality, virtual worlds, learning games and simulation, something we call FAM, full augmented and mixed reality, and 3D printing, which I call the inversion of immersion, the ability to take these three-dimensional virtual objects and make them physical so that you can carry them around and examine them with your hands. So the question I think I get asked the most is, what is immersion? We're talking about immersive education. What is immersion? And quite simply, in an abstract way, it is being so engaged and so focused on your task that everything else drops away. Everything else is on the peripheral, and if it's deep enough, you're so deep into it that someone has to come shake you out of the experience. I think hopefully we've all been there at least once in our lives. The technologies that we use and the way that they're applied intend to get to that deep state of immersion in a learning or a training experience. We utilize a wide variety of immersive technologies, and the intention really is reflected in our original mission statement, which was to give learners the sense of being there. We wanted students to feel if they couldn't travel to the pyramids of Egypt, we wanted them to feel as if they were there, even if they couldn't afford to go on the physical trip. If we distill it a little bit further and start to dig a little bit deeper into this sentence, it really is the notion of being there. Immersion is the notion of being there. Right now, we're all here. You're going to walk away, I'm going to walk away, and we're going to say, we were there. We had this experience. Immersive virtual reality gives you the sense of actually being there, where your memory is one of having an authentic experience and having been there.
Open your mouth and shout.
So is it too big for your head?
I'm holding it tight.
What do you?
She's good. She's good.
She's going to be
Did you
there.
get the picture of her doing that?
I'm taking a video. This is going on YouTube.
Oh man.
Situ, what do you think?
It's so real, and it's a picture in here, huh?
Yeah,
Oh Lordy.
that's pretty cool, right?
It sure is. And you know what? Is it my eyes or are the leaves blowing in
They're
the
blowing. You're right. You see it.
Oh man.
How cool is that?
Do you want to see the ocean?
Yeah.
All right, I'll walk you over to the ocean.
They're going to take her to the ocean.
Don't throw me over the water.
You can look over the water if you want, all the way to the right.
Oh man.
See the island out there?
Now, originally, were these taken in Tuscany?
No, that's all 3D.
Oh,
Somebody made that all on the computer.
That's right, it's in 3D too.
my.
It's all made on the computer.
Oh my.
Does it look like legit 3D?
Oh, it looks like the sun is coming up.
All right, I'm not going to make you hit
Ooh, man! Oh man!
Situ,
I thought
can
you were going to put me through the window, not hit me against the post.
Situ, can you reach out and touch the post?
What's that again?
Doesn't it feel like you can reach out and touch the post?
You bet your bottom dollar you can. And I can't get over the leaves moving. I'm amazed. I don't believe I'm seeing this.
She's there.
Heavens. This is taking me away.
All right, take it off.
To another.
Tell me how you feel when you take it off.
Oh, I can't believe it. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, right?
It's gorgeous.
Doesn't it feel like you stepped out of another world?
Oh, I like magic from Tuscany here.
Yeah.
Like magic. Oh, it's beautiful.
And here's another generation.
Something's gonna be behind me. Come on with this light.
He was there. He was immersed. And this guy is there and he's moving all around. These are three-dimensional virtual reality goggles. They give you what's called stereo vision and positional tracking in a virtual world. So it's not like watching a video up close. It's as you experience the world around you today, this is happening inside of these goggles. And he just shot someone with an arrow he's trying to get away from, so he better move. Time for a little magic. That's my favorite. He doesn't realize what it looks like from the outside because he is there immersed in the virtual reality experience. Here we have another take on the technology. This is cave technology. As opposed to being inside of the virtual reality headset, here we actually have a room that the projection of the virtual environment is on the walls, but it's also in the glasses. So you have spatialization. You can move and walk around inside of the virtual environment. In this case, he's designing a safe city, and he's planning escape routes in case of emergency. The ability to rehearse over and over again legitimately lays down a memory that when called upon, you can't distinguish from a virtual or an actual bona fide, authentic memory. So virtual reality training is used all the time in military. It's used in situational combat to give these people the experience of having been there, a real deep rooting, so that when the actual event happens, they're prepared for it. Here's an example from Caterpillar Tractor, where they're examining the tractor. It's in an engineering state. They're examining to ensure that all of the components of the tractor were properly assembled, and in a moment we'll go into the electrical system. And they're doing it together. This is called a co-present experience. They're together, present in this virtual experience, working together as a team. They're now going to start looking at the innards of the tractor to ensure that it was in fact assembled properly. And they're going to start to identify some components that need to be replaced that were not properly configured to begin with. And they were going to, after making sure that the engine itself is properly constructed and safe, we're going to take a test drive inside of this virtual environment. But again, the belief of the individual who's doing this is that they're doing this for real. So this is a training mechanism and a preparation mechanism, both for safety and for the application of this technology, the tractor in this case, in the real world. I'm going to slide out the panels here. Do we have enough space to escape if something happens? Having them become comfortable in a confined space.
I can look around every corner. I can see every nook and cranny. I can dive into every space and observe every little detail.
This is a Jaguar.
Cars in this virtual landscape means we're better prepared for the rigors of the real world.
This is a virtual car design, being inside of the engine of the car and reassembling it. So why bother? These are very advanced technologies. The main reason is engagement. When you have a deep engagement, you're there, you're immersed, you retain more, and because of the visualization of this technology, the ability to really visualize real-world things and invisible things, atoms in the air, poisons that you can't see, you have a deeper retention for this material. There's also a precision aspect to it, that you can precisely virtually control these environments to the extent that a surgeon can do a pre-surgery before they ever get into the operating room using these technologies. And you can practice over and over and over again. The computer won't get exhausted, you might, but you can get it right. It takes time, but you can get it right. And you can have built-in assessment so that you know where you're having problems, you know where you need to work. Your teachers and your trainers can identify the hot spots that you need to work on as well through the assessment. Perhaps the biggest thing that happens, however, is the psychological attachment into the virtual environment if done correctly. You project yourself and believe that you are there in the immersive space, and it becomes indistinguishable from a real experience to you. These can be individual experiences, or they can be co-present experiences, so I can meet with my students, and I frequently do, and give them tours and lectures in a virtual environment. We have that experience together. It's modern technology, advanced technology for a modern workplace and a modern school. It's the same technologies the kids are using at home and playing with, but we apply it to the education and training experience. If done properly, you can also take advantage of economies of scale. One virtual environment can be used across your entire company. In the health and safety industry, you could probably imagine a lot of these already at use, and in fact they are in some places. Working at heights, I'll show you an example taken from a video game. Lockout and tagout, that'll be the first example I show you, and I'll ask you to imagine this virtual video game in a lockout tagout scenario. Confined space entry all the time. NASA uses it for dealing with shuttle compartments, and we also have oil rigs where they're taught to work inside of very confined spaces. You can do electrical safety, fire safety, training and hazards inside of these environments. And it's currently used extensively.
But as with all dormer machines, there is a control panel.
If you could imagine this as a lockout tagout scenario. It's futuristic, but there's a sequence, a precise, detailed sequence that this individual has to master in order to get to his next goal. This is a video game. Imagine this as an actual lockout tagout with a precise representation of your lockout tagout system.
All right, then little focal pads to the top, and then put the focal pads back down below. All right, so let's bring the focal pads to the top.
So Here he is just about at the end of the actual lockout tagout. In order to get this, he's getting visual feedback from a very complicated system. Now again, this is a video game, so you have to imagine this in your scenario. But we have players, video game players, playing and doing these kinds of complicated maneuvers extensively for fun.
Aha, there we go. Okay, so.
And he's just mastered one of the sequences. He's starting to realize he's getting a reaction. The sequence that he's entered is working properly. And if everything works as expected, there, he's just unlocked it. The apparatus drops down. And now he is actually in the final stage of the lockout tagout, where he is going to be rewarded because he cannot go on to the next goal until he masters this.
And we have an inscribed lexicon. Yes, that looks quite different indeed.
And here it goes. He just completed it. Here is his reward. In a lockout tagout scenario, it would be to actually leave the building and leave it in a secure state. Here is another very popular video game that is all about safety at heights. Now, the kids play this for fun compulsively, but the entire game, the premise of this is mastering your body weight and the structures around you to stay in the air. Once you fall, you lose. So Mirror's Edge is all about competing with yourself and others to try and stay alive at high heights and in scary heights. And in a virtual reality environment, this causes you to feel almost sick moving at these speeds. But people who do it are so good at it that they just fly through this until they don't. Now here we have a more traditional immersive education training scenario. We're on a boat. This is one of many missions that has to be mastered. In this case, there's an electrical system problem. The electrical propulsion system needs to be located and repaired in order for the boat's navigation and for its propulsion to actually work. So here we have a representation of the control cabinets. He has to know what equipment to use. He's now measuring the electrical signals and is going to fix some of the issues that are happening with the propulsion system so that the boat can move forward. And this is just one of many training missions that he has to master to basically keep this gigantic boat afloat. He's going to communicate with headquarters on the walkie-talkie. Everything looks just fine, so he is actually you didn't see the full sequence, but he has restored the electrical power. And he's going on to another mission. At this point, he has to gain control of the ship, which he couldn't have done unless he solved the electrical issue. He's going to ensure that all the safety apparatuses are in place. He has to override and take control on it manually because the boat's not operating on autopilot now. And we're going to go into the engine room. He has some work that has to be done in the engine room to finalize it. We won't walk through the whole thing, but eventually he finishes, gets it done, the boat is operational, and he succeeds. And if he didn't, he could go over and over and over again. In this example, we're seeing the tail end of firefighters are in a mall. The mall has been cleared. There's smoke somewhere. We're seeing the final stages of it, but they've been clearing the building. That's why there's nobody there. They finally started to isolate where the fire is, and you can see plumes of smoke.
Alex, Chris, do you copy? Something seems to have caught fire here in the trash can. I'll deal with it.
All right, John. Where exactly are you?
In the side corridor, behind the burger joint.
Stay where you are. We're coming over. Chris, did you get that? Yes, understood. I'll be right there.
They followed protocol completely. The gas mask goes on. His team is on the way. And now he has to use the equipment. And this is virtual reality equipment that he has to use the proper application of it. He has to turn the nozzle on. He doesn't just saturate it. He has to use the right extinguisher for the type of fire it is. Electrical versus burning materials are different types of fires. He approaches it from different angles to lightly coat the fire and slowly contain it. If he didn't, the fire wouldn't go out and it might actually escalate. And if he had used the wrong kind of equipment...
How's it looking, John?
Fire is out.
Good job. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. What's the situation?
John's found the source of the fire and it's already been extinguished.
Good job, guys. Then please turn off your
They're
sirens
done.
and return
They're
to
heading
base.
home. He actually used the right equipment, the right extinguisher, and the fire is out.
Charles, that's my middle name. Hey, Charles.
Here's a water safety example. This is actually a drowning simulator. I won't show you all the gory details, but just enough to get a sense of how this can be used in water safety scenarios, in and around water, pools, boats, containment vessels.
A lot of water. Yeah. Make sure everything's secure.
Quoi? Je fais quoi là? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
Uh-oh.
Julien? Quoi? Attention!
Oh, look out! Oh, we're in the water.
Uh-oh.
Woo! Made it. Charles, come back.
So he's in the water.
Stay.
The guy who you see, he's playing this simulator.
Get above the water.
He has to use both hands to control the computer.
Come on, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Big breath, and float. Come on, I got two hands on this. I'm working it. Swim towards him. Yeah, there you go. Oh, man, I'm screwed. Oh, man, I'm screwed. Come on.
He starts to fatigue.
Go, 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 go. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on. Oh, I'm opening it. Hey. Come on. Get up. Get up. Oh, crap.
And he has to make some important decisions. You don't see all of them, but you'll see one that was a critical mistake on his part.
I'm all over this place. I'm not even in the right screen anymore. Go, 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 go. I'm opening all kinds of stuff. Shut up. Yeah, I'm working it. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Get up.
Now, you don't see it, but his cortisol levels, the stress levels in his body have shot through the roof because he is literally swimming for his life, even though it's in a simulator.
I'm getting tired.
He's becoming fatigued, his hands become cold, it's becoming more difficult. The controls in order to master this become equally more difficult as he starts to basically fatigue and he starts to make bad decisions. Here, he thinks is a great decision.
Kick your feet. Oh, crap. Oh, yeah, take your shoe off or something.
Take your shoe off.
So you can swim better.
There's a critical mistake in water. He actually thinks it'll help him swim faster. What it does is it removes warmth and it helps to actually chill the body faster. And at this point, he slowly starts to succumb to the water. That was one of many critical mistakes he made.
Oh, come on. No. Don't drown. Don't drown on me, buddy. Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Oh, man. Come on. Oh, crap. I'm so cold. Come back and get me, buddy. I'm working it. Okay, I gotta change hands again. Okay. Come on. Oh, God. Come.
Watch his face.
I can't. I don't know if I can make it much longer. Come on.
He knows he's in trouble.
Come on. Come on. Get on the screen. Get on the freaking screen, man. Oh, no. Oh. Why? Did it go way the heck up there and even move it?
Now watch his face. He's drowned.
You drowned after 3 minutes and 41 seconds. See, you tire faster than you think. We never got to see wear your life jacket. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, why don't I have my life jacket on? Phew. Arms are tired. I thought about trying it again, but I don't want to.
He doesn't want to go through that again. That was an authentic experience. He was there, it didn't work out for him, and it was a bad ending for him. But he has the option to go back over and over and over again to go through all the things that are necessary to survive at sea. So I hope this gave you maybe a very broad, sweeping look at virtual reality and some of the technologies we use in immersive education for teaching and training. It's just the very tip of the iceberg, a few examples of thousands, and I look forward to your conversation in the Q&A session that will follow Todd. Todd is going to speak next, so I appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from Todd.
If you don't mind. How am I supposed to follow that? How am I supposed to follow that? How do you follow that? I'm exhausted. I just drowned. I died. Can you all see me? What if I turn like this? Is it like looking at a knife blade? So before we get started, I very rarely get to tell this story because I very rarely get a whole crew of people like you. So I wanted to tell you just a quick sort of standard I'm setting for my presentation. So last week, I'm teaching a room full of field supervisors. I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but they're a very interesting crowd. They basically sit in the room with their arms crossed like this and sort of dare you to teach them something. You're doing it right now, actually. That look, that's the look. In the middle of the class, this guy's cell phone rings. Now, I'm not very freaked out by this because it's a cell phone. I don't take it personally. But the guy kind of freaks out. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. He's looking back at me. And finally, I say to him, if you need to get that call, you can. The guy picks up the phone and takes the phone call. Only problem is he doesn't leave the room. The entire phone call in the middle of the class, in the middle of all these supervisors. So he grabs the phone and he goes, yeah, which I think is how field supervisors say good morning. I'm translating that. Then there's a pause and he goes, I'm in training. And there's a longer pause and he goes, it's all day. And that one had a blade in it. I felt that one. And then he says the most amazing thing. He says, doesn't suck as much as I thought it was gonna. I'm pretty convinced that's the Academy Award in safety training. So before I get started, let me give you a scenario because we're talking about innovations in safety. And I think there's an important sort of challenge for you guys in this room. And that challenge is going to be based upon this idea. If you want your workers to give you different answers, you've got to ask different questions. So let me set the scene. I'm out working, and I'm at a temporary loading dock for marine vessels to support offshore operations. Now, I don't know in your company what the word temporary means, but at Los Alamos, that means less than 30 years. Anything less than 30 years, temporary loading dock. This dock has been here for 8 years, and basically what they did was dredge the beach, set it up so the vessels could pull really close to the beach. They had a construction crane on some concrete pads, and they were loading the vessel from this temporary dock. There was a fence around it. It had a little job trailer, had a porta potty, had a parking lot. It was perfect, right? And these guys, it's the last load of the day, and they're loading super sacks. Now, for those of you guys that don't know what super sacks are, they're sacks that are super. Good, you're staying with me. They're actually these big bags. You've seen them everywhere that have these 4 handles on the top of them. And they're super easy to rig on a crane because you just hook the handles up 1, 3, 2, 4. And they're loading super sacks, and they're loading super sacks full of sand onto this vessel. And for some reason, the last load of the day, instead of hooking the handles up 1, 3, 2, 4, like they always do, they took a piece of nylon line and tied the 4 handles together. Now, they tied more than 1 knot. Because if you can't tie a knot, you should tie a lot, just in case you're wondering. They then tied that nylon line to the crane hook, and they lifted the load. Now, they're swinging this load hanging on this nylon line through an exclusion area. So there's stanchions, there's chains, and they've put big red X's on the beach to identify the place where the load's going to be carried. And as they swing it over to that vessel, the load falls. Doesn't hit anybody, doesn't kill anybody, and near as I can tell, when you drop a bag full of sand on sand, the only problem you might have is a sorting issue, right? Because it's all sand. Is that a success or a failure? Let's vote. How many of you think it's a success? Just show of hands. How many of you think it's a failure? Show of hands. How many of you just don't give a crap? I always like to give a third option. Thanks for being honest, all right? How you choose as a leader to respond to that failure colors what you see. Because if you choose to see that as a failure, the load was dropped, then what you're going to do is you're going to respond to that as if it were a failure. But if you choose to see it as probably the most robust test you could ever have, of actually the safety system that created the exclusion area. In fact, they were so good at dropping stuff that that red X on the beach, it hit directly in the middle. You'd probably give them points for that. That's kind of immersive, right? Right? That choice is huge because we're up against a real challenge in safety right now. Now, I'm going to say something that's really bold, and I want you to listen carefully. More rules will not make your company more safe. And if you don't believe that, ask anybody wearing coveralls, anybody in FRC, anybody who's touching a tool, and they will tell you that asking me to get hurt does not directly correlate to actually getting hurt. And our challenge is, from an innovative standpoint, I think we define safety incorrectly. In fact, I think what we do is we measure our safety success by counting the number of people we hurt. That's stupid. Safety is not the absence of failure. Safety, in fact, is the presence of capacity to fail. And what your organization wants to do more than anything on earth is fail, but fail safely. Let me ask question 2. Why do we put people in fall protection? I'm giving you time, just to kind of soak it in a little. So here's what I'm going to tell you. We don't really care very much about the fall part. What we care about is the landing part. And in fact, fall protection really uses that innovative new view of safety, because here's what I'll tell you. Every person that works at height who you have in fall protection, you're assuming there's a 100% chance they're going to fail. In fact, you're not managing fall protection by probability. You certainly don't manage fall protection by putting an administrative control, a rule, do not fall. What you do is say, if they do fall, when they fall, we're going to manage how they land. We're going to manage the consequence of that failure. And to do that, that's pretty important. Let me show you a couple slides, because, God, this was a big deal getting these slides to these people. So let's go. Ready? Pop them up there. And now, do I push a button? Oh, thank God. There they are. Safety is not the absence of accidents. For us, safety is really the presence of defenses. When I say when they dropped a bag of sand, and are you curious why it's the last load of the day? Their response to that was to remove the crew that was loading the vessel. Doesn't matter what time you drop a bag of sand, if you fire the crane operator, last load of the day. That's how that works, right? I'm going to suggest what we do is we don't manage accidents. We're terrible at managing accidents. Asking people to not have accidents is not very effective. What we do really well, and every single one of you in this crowd does it, is we manage the capacity for the organization to fail. And this notion of capacity is really important for us as we progress through. Let's take it one step further. I think I can describe what it's like to work for you guys. I think your workers are as safe as they need to be, without being overly safe in order to get work done. They balance constantly the notion of safety. But the question I'd ask you, and it's a really important question, is how do you know you're safe? If we see safety as an outcome to be achieved, then in fact measuring safety is very easy. I know I'm safe because I did not fail. The problem is that's not very helpful. So let me ask you this question. When you drive to work every morning, how do you know while you're driving you're safe enough? So one answer you could tell me is, well, I get there safely. Well, that's a super sexy metric. I mean, it's easy to measure, it's easy to manage, it makes tons of sense, but the problem is that's not the question. How do you know while you're driving you're safe enough? And the problem is that in reality, you don't. In fact, you're constantly managing safety in real time. What you're managing is the word risk. Some parts of your drive are more risky, some parts of your drive are less risky, but you're constantly in the process of managing that risk. Our tools assume that hazards are permanent. In fact, plans assume that there will be no variability. The problem is we put workers in a world where, in fact, hazards are constantly in motion. They move in and move out. And what's amazing about this is this challenge. Our shift in innovative understanding of safety is this one. We have to stop seeing the workers as a problem to be fixed and start understanding that the workers really are a solution to be harnessed. If your only safety tool is behavior, then you're going to hurt people. Workers are as safe as they need to be, but nobody wants to be overly safe. And all of us want to get work done. And this challenge is enormously important to what we want to think about. Now, this is what an event looks like. It's pretty simple. There's the context, then there's the consequence, that's the bad thing that happened, and then there's the retrospective way we understand the accident after it takes place. Context, consequence, retrospective. Got it? Which one of these three parts of this model, in your opinion, is least interesting? As a senior leader in your organization, which one of these three components has the least value for you? Is it the context? Is it the consequence? Or is it the retrospective? I'll answer it for you. The least interesting part of an accident is what happens. If you're responding to consequence as a company, you're doing it wrong. Because the consequence is what happened. Companies that respond to consequences are constantly reacting to failure. But I'll tell you, it's really simple. The consequence is the only part of a failure that obeys the laws of physics. Why do people fall down? Anybody know? Don't overthink this too much. Gravity. Perfect. Why do people cut their hands? Sharp crap and soft tissue. If you drop 500 pounds of steel on a worker's foot, what's going to happen? If you want to invent a foot crushing machine, what do you need? 500 pounds of steel and a poor worker's foot at some point in this equation, right? What's interesting to me is that the event doesn't happen in the consequence, the event happens in the context. And our challenge is to realize that for us to take safety to the next level, which is why every single one of you are in this room, we have to move away from reacting to consequence and start responding to context. You're really good at managing conditions, but you're not really good at managing consequence. Think about it, fall protection. We don't wait for the consequence. We assume the consequence, and we know what the consequence is going to be. We manage the conditions we put the worker in before that worker goes. If you think of anything, you guys, it's got to be safe to fail in your high-risk operations. If your high-risk operations aren't safe to fail, then what happens is you kill people. And that challenge is a big part of where we want to go and how we want to talk about it. So where does this take us? Well, your workers are probably the most important part of the entire story. In fact, if you want different answers, you've got to ask your workers different questions. Think of it kind of like this. When I was talking about driving to work, I was secretly thinking about this slide. Now, your workers know when it's safe to do work. Your workers also absolutely know when it's not safe to do work. The problem is your workers never get to be in 100% safe or 100% danger, thank God. Your workers live in the middle, this gray area, the uncertain interpretation of when safe is safe enough. And if this isn't enough, the lines that delineate safe from unsafe, the lines that sort of define procedures, those lines are constantly in motion. In fact, when do I know exactly when this guy should have zigged instead of zagged? When do I know exactly when they should have used the handles and not the nylon line? As soon as the failure happens, this is what an accident looks like. The problem is, and this is really a problem for us, you guys, is that this is the accident we respond to as managers, but this is the accident you had. That difference is enormously important to what we want to talk about. And it really takes us to sort of the ultimate answer. I want to say, I'm getting emotional. I want to say two things to you straight out of the chute. This black line represents every procedure you've ever written. This is how you imagine work gets done. Everybody got it? That's the black line. If that's the black line, what's this line? Now, funny, everyone in the room realizes this, but here's what I'm going to tell you. You've never done a job that went the way you thought it was going to go. In fact, every job you do has variability. And the problem with plans is that plans can't plan for unexpected variabilities. The best procedure in the world, the one that when you hold it, you feel warm, the air smells like chocolate chip cookies, unicorns come jumping around, vomiting rainbows. I mean, it's a perfect procedure. Even that best procedure has difficulty managing variability. And what's crazy is this next question. If you only followed your procedure, you did no variation, no creativity, no problem solving, no adaptation, you did rote compliance to your procedure, no more and no less, how much work would your guys get done? You count on workers solving problems. In fact, you rely on workers solving problems. And what's crazy, and I'll just say this straight to your face, your workers spend as much time overperforming their procedures as they do underperforming their procedures. So for every time they take a shortcut, they've probably created 2 process improvements to create more safety. What's crazy is that this little model is very representative of how work happens. And our challenge is to understand that procedures are important. They're vital in historically understanding how the work is to be done, but procedures aren't real. And what we're sort of caught in is this trap that says there is one right way. And the problem for your workers is they know there's one right way. The problem is you don't give them work that follows those same rules. The work they're doing is constantly being degraded. And we look at this model and we think, is that everything? Well, let's add one more line. As your workers drift away from procedures, what happens is they start to accumulate new hazards. And if the blue line touches the red line, well, that's a bad thing. That's not good. The crazy thing, and what I'd suggest is important for us to talk about, is that the operational excellence gap we manage is not the gap between the blue line and the black line. That's normal. It's the gap between the blue line and the red line. That's real-time, in the field, risk assessment and risk management. Your challenge is, as leaders in the new world, innovative safety professionals and innovative safety executives, is to realize that what is getting us in trouble is the constant variability that the workers must deal with. We have to create systems where we know they will fail, and when they fail, they're recoverable. A really good organization sees a mistake as an opportunity to learn. A really bad organization sees a mistake as an opportunity to punish. So where does this take us? Well, my final hint in the new world is that spending time studying failure is not very predictive. When you get numbers at your level, and they're amazing, right? One of the problems that many people in this room deal with is the fact that as your performance gets better, the predictive nature that those numbers once gave us goes away. The safer you become, the smaller your data prediction set gets. And now you're in a pickle. Because now what you have is a really good organization with very few injuries that hums along until we kill somebody. Our challenge is to realize that we have to take what we're doing and move it into the identification of how good work is done. You have to investigate success. You have to learn from success. You have to hot wash or outbrief or post-job success, because in success, we have the opportunity to talk about failure. So I've got one more story for you. It's a teeny one. I was at this big meeting. It was fancy pants. I mean, fancy pants. And I don't know if you can tell this, but I'm not that fancy pants of a guy. Like they said, everyone's going to be in a suit. And I'm like, not everyone. Right? So I go to this meeting, and it's the 5 top CEOs from the oil and gas industry. It's fancy. And they're the only ones at this big oak table. Everyone in that room, their shoes cost more than my house. I live in a crappy house, but nonetheless, we can talk about it, right? Now, I don't know if you've ever had to do one of those meetings, but there's a lot of pressure. And what they said is you're not invited to the meeting, but you can come in during your section. But they said, in order to create continuity, we're actually going to bring you in the speaker before you, You'll sit in the back, and they looked at me and said, and you'll be quiet. And when it's your turn, you can build on what the speaker before you said. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So they bring me in. I'm sitting in a room. I'm sitting next to a guy I don't know. Now, I grew up in southeast Colorado, which is the middle of nowhere. I don't want to brag or anything, you guys, but my high school graduating class had 31 people, and I was in the top 10. I know, it's amazing. Because I grew up in that part of the world, I don't need to know you to have a whole conversation with you. In fact, knowing you probably actually reduces the conversation I'll have with you. So I'm sitting in this room, and I talk to the guy next to me, and he's not that interested in talking to me, but I figure I'm never coming back to this meeting, so I want to talk to him. And this guy gets up, really nice suit, and he pushes a button, and his slides are animated, and he puts a slide up that says 80% of our accidents worldwide happen because the worker didn't follow procedure. And I'm sitting in the back, and I turn to this guy next to me, and I go, duh, just like that. Had I known the guy in the suit could hear me, I would have done it much softer. Because he turns and says, what did you just say? And I said, I didn't say anything, and pointed to the guy next to me. Exactly the same thing you would do, so no worry. And he says, really, why would you say that? And I said, well, my guess is 100% of your accidents happen because your workers don't follow procedure. And he's an engineer, and so he says exactly what an engineer would say. We didn't find that in our data. I said, well, may I ask you a question? And he said, please. And I said, when you successfully perform work on time, under budget, on schedule, no injuries, do you have 100% procedural adherence? And he looks at me and he says, we didn't measure that. And I said, why not? And he said, because I'm kind of afraid of what we might find. The challenge for us is to realize that when successful work happens, workers make mistakes, and there are giant sections of the work where they're not following the procedure. That takes us to my main message. We've got to live in the context. We've got to live before the event happened. We've got to live in successful work. Because when we identify problems early, our capacity is gigantic. And what we want is the capacity to fail safely, fall protection. If we wait for the accident to happen, look what doesn't change. It gets bigger, but your capacity stays the same. That's a challenge, and it's a real challenge. I challenge you as leaders to change the questions you ask about your safety program. To ask workers how safety existed when the work was successful. To ask workers where failure happened that we can learn from. Because when you drop a bag of sand, or you do a verification on a lockout tagout and you find an energized source, that's not the time to discipline. That's a time for cake. And I should just tell you straight out of the chute, I'm very pro-cake. I love cake, everything about it. But to do that, to get you there, I've got to change the way you look at and understand failure. And to do that, I have no remote, which must mean my time's done. My last slide says this. Safety is not the absence of accidents. It's the presence of capacity. Thanks, you guys. Am I late or early?
We're good. Right on time.
Good.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Sam, Aaron, and Todd. Those are three terrific presentations and great perspectives. Operational excellence, immersive education, and the implications for safety, and a new view of safety. So as I said earlier, we have two microphones here in the aisles, and we're anticipating your questions, so we'll just start on one side and then the other. So go ahead and line up behind the mics if you've got questions for our panelists, and let's see what's on your mind. Okay. Over here on the right side, or your left.
Good morning. My question's for Mr. Smolik. It's kind of some logistic questions, but based on the complexity of your operations. I had some curiosity about your audit program. would you be able to kind of describe, is it all third party, is it internal? Do you share talent between the facilities when you do your internal auditing? And then the other question you commented on was an alert that goes out about incidents that happen or close calls, how you broadcast that out. Could you talk about that a little bit? And is HR involved in that communication? How much detail are you allowed to blast out to the community when you have a incident that triggers that type of notification?
Okay, so there's an echo in here. So if I understand the question right, you asked about our auditing and then about our communication of near misses. And okay, if you remember on my slide of Plan, Do, Check, Act, everything we do has a definitive purpose. And so our audit program, first off, you go back, you have to have very clear expectations, right? So that's your standards and requirements. But then we audit against not only are you following it, but the effectiveness of it. Now, what we found back in 2009, a plant would take their audit results, go correct deficiencies, and then move on. So now we conduct a corporate-wide review of every audit and then say, most of the time, and I'm a believer that most problems are caused by leadership, okay? So it may be we didn't write our expectations clear, we haven't trained properly or whatever. So we always look at what can we do from a corporate point of view to help minimize the chance that somebody can make a mistake and have an incident. So we tie the audit process right back to our standards and expectations as we go forward. And Todd mentioned about more rules don't improve safety. I'm a believer of that. I'm for less government, fewer rules, but rules that make sense and become very clear. The second part is our high potential incidents. A lot of companies talk about near misses, and there's no, and we do that too. I mean, you get a lot of near misses, but there's not a minimum threshold level typically. So everybody calls things a near miss, and some locations might do hundreds of them, and some might not do any. So we went in and we set an automatic threshold for high potential incidents. So, for example, if there's any type of falling from height issue, that would be a high potential incident. If we drop something out of a structure, that's a high potential incident. People don't think that's important, but you get a tape measure. I think there was an incident not long ago in New York where a tape measure fell from an elevated height and hit somebody and killed them. If we get any chemical on a person, that's a high potential incident. So we've got these identified so people know automatically, and then plants have the ability to add other things to that as they go forward. So all those charts that I showed, the statistics are getting better and better. Our high potential incidents are going up. And some people don't understand that. They say, wow, look at all these bad things that are happening. And I contend they were always happening, but just now we're capturing it, and we're showing people what good looks like and what bad looks like so they have a better understanding. Because it's all about culture, right? It's the culture that you set, the way we want to perform, and nothing's more important than our safety. I hope that gets to your question.
Okay, next.
My question has to do with the immersive training. If you're doing training on lockout, tagout, or material handling, do you focus on the negative, the positive, or the both, and do you show the consequences? And does one or the other make a bigger impact on the decision that the employee is going to make?
Sure. So the technology is fairly new for this particular usage, but the design and the development that goes into it typically follows, believe it or not, typically follows video games. And video games, like them, love them, hate them, have had a long, rich history since basically the dawn of personal computers. But along with that history of game playing have come lots of research studies on what helps people to proceed and progress in the game. And it's not one or another factor, it's multiple factors. And there's a concept of gamification. These are the rewards that you get that keep you playing. Why is one game a game someone will play once or twice toss it away, and another they'll play over and over and over and over and over and over again and over again until they need some form of therapy. That actually happens. Immersive illness and immersive addiction is certainly an issue. And it comes down to the design and what are called the gamification elements inside of that virtual experience. And they typically follow both a pro and a con. There's usually a reward at the end of a small goal. And so you saw that lockout tagout example, which was actually a video game. It just happened, I applied it to the lockout tagout scenario to give you an idea. There are two things happening there. One is the goal. At the end of that, he wanted that whole apparatus to be properly locked out so that he could open up the chamber and get a scroll, which was very important for him to go on in his mission. So he couldn't go to the next part of his mission. That was a reward. However, what you don't see is the negative side of it coming, which is if he doesn't get this done, he is going to be probably stabbed from behind and die on the spot. So he has two forces driving him through that.
Like an electrician.
Just like an electrician or a plumber, exactly, especially if they have high rates and they're in a bad home. So you don't just design it and say focus on the negative, focus on the positive. There literally is an entire industry focused on gamification, and those elements have to be properly designed in, and they can be very, very subtle, or they can be very obvious. The obvious one in this case was getting the scroll down. The subtle one was he knows in the back of his head, based on prior missions, that he's got a certain amount of time before danger is coming. Those have to be woven into the narrative, and they have to be very clear and obvious, and they have to be somewhat predictable so that you know each time you go into the scenario. You don't want to have the exact same scenario, but you want to have a sense of what you need to do to get in and out of there. So it's a combination of them, and it's for every virtual experience, it's a different combination.
I understand that it helps with retention, but does it also transform into the decisions the employees make in real life?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So there's been studies on it.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the almost miraculous outcomes of immersive technology that I don't think anybody was really prepared for, is that, and I mentioned the psychological process of becoming, it's a true psychological projection of yourself into the virtual environment, where you no longer think I'm playing a game, you are driving the ship. I'm no longer playing a drowning simulator, I'm fighting for my life, and I'm trying not to drown. That process doesn't happen in all immersive experiences. Again, it comes to the design and the elements that go into it. But when it's done properly, you project yourself in there, and for the duration of that experience, you're immersed, you're there, you believe it's happening. As a consequence of that, it changes your neural circuitry. It literally lays down neural pathways, especially if you play it over and over again, so that you believe that you are in an authentic experience. If you ask people who are in these experiences a week, a month, a year down the road, they won't say, I played the video game. They say, I drowned 3 minutes and 14 seconds. I was suffocating, my hands got cold. I thought I had to swim faster, so I took off my shoes. I actually peeled off a fingernail, which is part of the simulation, to get myself some adrenaline and to check for hypothermia. They go back psychologically, and they remember it as it happened to them. And there are plenty of studies that back that up. As a result of that, the decisions that you make day to day, moment to moment, coming out of those simulations is in fact authentic, and they change the way you act and behave. That's why they're so powerful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question over here.
This question is also for Mr. Smolik. Something you said kind of struck with me, and that was the 100%, trying to get 100% of people on board, 100% of people on with your vision for where you want to go from safety. And it made me think about the difficulty of getting to that 100%, just like the difficulty of the 0 incidents, indefinitely. It's asymptotic, going from a terrible company for safety to a okay company from safety. It takes, noticing that the unsecured bowling ball on the top shelf probably shouldn't be sitting there above your desk, right? But as you get towards the long end where you're trying harder and harder to pre-identify those things, it starts to be a lot more cultural, right? And that requires change. And for the most part, say 80% of people will quickly buy into those changes. They see the benefit, they see the value. But there's the difficulty that I have seen and that I've run into in the past is that there's a small fraction of people, for a variety of reasons, personal or what have you, that have a difficulty with the change, whether it's because they just have a hard time with change and itself, or because they don't believe in it, or what have you. So I was hoping that you could comment on how you inspire or drive or get buy-in from people to make those changes despite their own difficulties with handling it.
Okay. You said that stuck with you, so I'm glad something stuck. I'm a believer that most people are good people, and most people want to do a good job. They want to be doing worthwhile work. They want to get praise, recognition. They want good pay, good benefits. They want a good working environment. Unfortunately, there's a few that just aren't with the program, and so we try not to have a punitive company, but it's very important to identify if somebody is not with the program. You're better off, getting them to go do something different rather than put people at jeopardy. Because in our business, handling chemicals, the consequences can be severe. So it's very important for leaders and each other. We talk about engagement, empowerment, working with each other. Our high-performance teams, they'll weed out a person who refuses to change, and that's what you really want. When the employees own it, they own the workplace, and they say, this is what we're all about. So we're constantly working on the vision, the expectations. We want to be a winner. We want to be the best out there. And we have a global safety day once a year where we have a theme, and it's always behavior focused. Like one year was Goal Zero starts with me. Focus start to finish was one. Most recently is performing at your best every day. I think that might have been on my slide. And you can't just focus on safety. You have to focus on how you do your work. And safety is an outcome, just like reliability and productivity is too. So, what we find is most people keep doing better and better and better, but you got to be looking for that person you're missing. And, if they refuse to work the right way, they've got to go somewhere else.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question?
For both Aaron and Todd, the presence of psychological injury in the workplace, the mental harms that come from incidents of violence or even stress, do you see your immersive technologies, capabilities being able to both address those sort of circumstances and using the concepts that Todd introduced us to, creating resilience or capacity, both either within the company culture or within the individual worker, to have a stronger mental fitness?
Yes, since you asked in that order, maybe I'll answer and then Todd can talk up to his part of it. The answer is absolutely. The technologies are used already for psychological purposes. They are used to treat phobias. They're used to treat height phobias, arachnophobia, and other forms of phobia. They are used for PTSD, for real Gulf War victims who have come back and who are struggling with the day-to-day. The technologies are used to immerse you in a situation that is safe, but you can slowly introduce some of these conflicting elements under a controlled scenario with a therapist present, so that they start to slowly relive perhaps some of these events that cause great trauma in their lives and allow them to become more comfortable with it. So the answer is absolutely yes. It's used in a range of mental and emotional health care scenarios already.
I completely agree. The resilience component, I think, is that you don't just train people how to do it right, you also train them how to handle it if it goes wrong. So the ability to simulate variability and really look at your training around how they make adaptive decisions, especially around really high-risk, high-consequence work. So you can actually do things that you could never do in a million years in real life, you can do in that simulation, in that immersive technology. It's a great way to really manage. It's probably what keeps us from falling out of the sky in aviation. Pilots drill for variability, and they drill and drill and drill, so that when you're on rollout in Las Vegas in a 777 and your engine catches fire, you make that split second to abort the takeoff, And it's much better to have the engine fire on the ground than it is in the air. So it's a great question.
Okay, next.
I thought it was interesting how all three seemingly different discussions actually relate, and you know, Sam talked about procedures, and Aaron had the example of the lockout, the game, the guy trying to get the scroll, and the different ways to accomplish that, with exemplified by Todd's presentation with the straight line and the wave line. My question is for Todd. You mentioned that safety, the definition of safety is historically viewed as the absence of accidents, but you've got your definition as the capacity or the presence of capacity not to fail. And so my question to you is, how do you measure that? What things do you measure to understand that capacity?
So the measurement's really hard, right? Capacity is pretty easy to assess. You can go out and validate and verify systems all along, and you really look at and do worst case scenario, critical step identification. You sort of look at all the ways that a system can potentially fail and then test for that capacity. Those metrics are always there. The challenge is that we're on a quest somehow for the hidden secret leading metrics that will make safety easy. I'm pretty convinced that the notion there is a leading set of metrics that will make our jobs predictive is kind of a fool's errand. In fact, I'm pretty convinced that had there been really good leading data for the old view, we'd have it. The new view really shifts those metrics from negative, the presence or absence, really, to a much more positive, holistic approach. So you're really looking at systems and that system's capacity to manage the potential consequence that exists. It really puts a lot more emphasis on validating and verifying while the work is being done.
Okay. And a final question?
Hi, I just had a question for Aaron. We've been, in the past, made our own safety videos, and I was real interested in the immersion and showing the animation. So my question was, we're starting to do like almost like YouTube type things, like real short 30-second, 1-minute type videos where we really hit real hazards. Is there a program or something we could use to show more the animation, or is that something you almost have to find somebody that specializes in that kind of
Yeah, there are a couple things I could suggest. One is you can make what's called spherical 3D videos, and you can put them on YouTube. They already exist. You could just look for spherical 3D videos on YouTube, and if you have that, so you could take your existing content and make it three-dimensional so that you could actually immerse people in a headset. That does a lot to engage them and bring them directly into the experience without any real extra work. To your point about the animation and the systems that are in place to construct these immersive environments, they are highly specialized tools and highly specialized tool kits that are used. And I'll go further. I didn't show the slide on it, but you would be amazed how many millions of dollars are lost because people get excited about the technology. They take it back to their school or their company, and they kind of dive in. They've got a great idea. The idea is great. It's the execution that is actually in need of a lot of help. These are complicated productions, and they take experts in a variety of fields to put them together. It might cost $10,000 to create something. It might cost $5 million. In any one of those scenarios, if you don't have the right mixture of expertise, it usually is sunk money. And too often you find excited, good, purposed, well-intended people coming back to their organizations and saying, we've got to do this, and they head out in a direction, and in that enthusiasm, they lose track of the fact that this is really complicated technology, not to mention all the psychological aspects to create a real good simulation. That needs to be factored in too. So with a little bit of thought and attention, that's what our organization does, is utilize the forums that we have to spread the word. With some proper planning, you can actually achieve what you need to in the budget that you need to, but the crisp answer to your question is they are specialized tools.
Okay, we've got time for about a 1-minute question and answer, so.
Yes, good morning. To Tom and the panel,
As we work to eliminate variability and process safety risk, have you found the A3 problem-solving process useful when your data set becomes smaller?
Yeah. The challenge we're having, at least in my shop, is that we've about decided the problem is that we can really sort of smooth the blue line out, but what we've had to do is kind of make the black line wider. So we've stopped writing procedures as if they were a single-lane highway and started writing procedures with big shoulders and rumble strips. So we're actually not, we sort of have moved beyond the belief that we can remove variability from a system. We're now actually building variability, or the capacity for variable outcomes to happen within the system. That's been much, much more effective for us in our high-risk, sort of impossible-to-fail operations. To do that, you really count on sort of linear prediction tools, kind of classic engineering tools, Newtonian tools. The problem is that the worker's in a much non-Newtonian environment. So they're not in a linear environment, they're more in a complex adaptive environment. So it's the difference between dominoes, if you set up dominoes and did a cascading failure, and Jenga blocks. And that move from a linear failure model, the dominoes, to the Jenga blocks, really helped us make tools like A3, engineering sort of prediction tools, failure modes and effects analysis, that kind of stuff. It made it be much more vital for us in that process. So it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, briefly, just you brought up variability. Some of the older folks in here remember Deming, Edwards Deming, who wrote a good book called Out of the Crisis. And you know, during those days, I learned about variability and eliminating defects, and that's our whole philosophy behind Goal Zero. So there's a lot of ways to measure that throughout your processes. You can process metrics or results metrics. So, you know, I think I'm a strong believer. The more you eliminate variability, the better you're going to be.
Okay, good. Two important things. First, as you came in, you were handed some comment cards. We really count on your completing those cards to give us suggestions to make this program even better. And second, on behalf of the National Safety Council and the Campbell Institute, I'd like to thank our three fine speakers, and they'll remain behind off stage for a few minutes here if you have any additional questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for today's webinar, the Campbell Institute webinar, Building a Safer Workplace Through Innovation and Leadership. For all those who are wondering, yes, a recording of this webinar will be made available within the next couple days. Just give us a little time to get it together, and you should receive an email with that link. So yes, we hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you're interested in more presentations like this one, please join us for the next Executive Forum taking place at the 2016 National Safety Council Congress and Expo in Anaheim, California. That will be October 15th through 21st. We hope to see you there. Everyone have a great day. Goodbye.